along the way that people had out of concern. But I just think it was a good thing, and I think we are seeing positive fruit now from those two decisions that were made. And now with the men that they are, Tom and Kevin, you're seeing some implementation of really prioritizing church planning and the Great Commission, reaching our world for Christ. I feel like good things have been happening, and the GCR set that in motion.
Okay. What do you do for fun?
For fun, I read. I love to read because I'm reading so much biblical, theological stuff at work. At night, I'm usually reading biographies or history or a novel or something like that. Love to read current events. I love sports, especially SEC football. That's kind of top of the list in following sports, and just like to stay in shape. Fitness is just a big part of the lifestyle. I think we're able to function better. That's fun. And I think, of course, the number one fun is just times we get to be with family, too. That's great in our busy world to be able to have those times.
Sure. 2 or 3 favorite TV shows or movies?
I watch so little TV other than news or ESPN. I'm not really a good one to answer there. When 24 that was definitely our favorite TV show.
What's that?
24.
24, okay.
That was definitely a favorite when it was on, but that's history now. I just like to watch the cable news and the sports stuff as far as TV.
Okay.
I will say, and I'm going to add, I think so much of TV today with reality TV is just pitiful.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's just pitiful. As far as movies, gosh, it's hard to say, Steve. I just don't know what to say.
Have you been able to see Courageous or Fireproof, any of those?
I really do want to see it. I just haven't had an opportunity to.
Okay. 2 or 3 heroes in ministry.
I think Billy Graham would be the number one hero. Not only all the people he has preached the gospel to and reached for Christ, but just that he and his ministry has stayed so above reproach.
Yeah.
And such a great example. And one of the things I love about the Graham team is they have had such longevity, and it's a joy here that so much of our ministerial staff has been on our staff for such a long time, and that's really exciting when you get a team approach to ministry like that. I certainly am thankful for a Bible teaching type of pastor like Chuck Swindoll that really great influence, especially in the early days of ministry, and I'm very thankful to have been mentored some in pastoring by Ed Young in the times I served with him at Second Baptist Houston, and very thankful for the 2.5 years I had there.
Right.
But I think we've got a lot of heroes in ministry in today's culture in the evangelical world. It's just that you don't have like kind of one person like Billy Graham has been. A lot of different folks out there that are having a great impact.
Yeah. What is the toughest lesson you've learned in ministry?
Oh, me. I think that the toughest lesson probably all of us pastors deal with is with good intentions we can sometimes go ahead, whether it's a new ministry, whatever program, in the flesh versus being spirit-led. And I think the longer I've been in the pastorate, I just really want to be sure before I move ahead with something that I feel the Holy Spirit is really convicting and leading and guiding in the process. And I think a lot of probably good things that young pastors want to do are good things. but they're not necessarily led by the Spirit.
You mentioned earlier family being a priority. How do you balance ministry and family responsibilities?
Well, it's a real passion of mine that to have a weekly Sabbath. And obviously, when you're in full-time ministry, Sunday is not that Sabbath, so you got to have another day. But we really promote that on our ministerial staff, and Ann and I have tried to model that. I just feel that weekly Sabbath is really a key. I think a pastor having a weekly date with his wife, especially when the children are in home. Obviously, when you get the empty nest, that's a lot easier to do. You have a lot of dates, but especially when the children are in the home, having that weekly date, just the two of you, is vitally important to keep the marriage fires burning. And then I think with our children, we always hoped that our children would, number one, love the Lord, and they would grow up loving the church, not resenting the church because of negative impact on the family. And it's a joy now. And please hear me. I don't want to come across boastful, because Ann and I still to this day with grown sons realize we're just a phone call away from a crisis. But just when your three boys love the Lord and they've married committed Christian gals, that's a wonderful payoff. And please hear me. I'm not trying to boast. It's just a payoff of prioritizing those relational family focuses.
Right. Hey, what a rare gift.
It is a gift. I mean, we're very thankful, and we realize we're just a phone call away from a crisis. We understand that.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that now.
Tell us what led you toward raising the issue of reconsidering a name change for the SBC, and do you have any possible name ideas in mind?
Well, it was really a matter of prayer after the Phoenix Convention. So thankful for the unity of spirit on reaching unreached people groups and planting churches, and just praying through as we move into the second year what kind of things to focus on. Well, one, I wanted to keep focusing on what we've been doing with the focus we had in Phoenix, but I just keep hearing comments, church planners outside the South. I mean, it's not so much people complain to me about the name, but just wisecracks about how difficult it is, how they feel like they have to hide the denominational name outside the South. And so I just began to talk to key leaders within our convention and to ask their honest feedback. What would they think? Would it be possible? And would it be helpful for our mission? Because that's really the big question, Steve. Is it going to help our mission, especially outside the South? And so after talking with a lot of folks and really getting a pretty universal answer that it would be helpful to our mission, even though some very skeptical that it would pass, I just felt led to set up the task force to study it, because it's been studied 13 times since 1903, and there have even been a couple of study task forces, but for the convention as a whole, there's never been an opportunity to make an informed decision. And what I mean by that is just what would the name be? What are the legal ramifications? What are possible financial ramifications? In other words, just an informed study, so that Southern Baptists could then decide from an informed study, would this help us from a missiological perspective? Because that's really, in the end, the main question. Is this going to enhance reaching people for Christ in North America? It's not going to have an impact, pro or con, from the international basis, but from a North American perspective, would it help us reach people for Christ in a better way and remove an unnecessary barrier? So that's what the task force is doing. I certainly have some names in mind, but I really feel it's the responsibility of the task force now to consider. I think about 450 to 500 suggestions of names have come in through the Pray for SBC.
Wow.
A lot of names suggested.
My suggestion is Fellowship of Baptist Christians, by the way.
It's not a bad name. That really, and by the way, as you say that, Steve, we realize there are two issues on the table. One is the Southern is the main issue.
Right.
Baptist is not. The task force is unified that we need to have Baptist in the name. For one thing, it would never pass. But I think it's better from a theological perspective to have Baptist in the name. And then convention, though.
Yeah.
We feel like convention is a very dated name.
it is technically correct that we only exist those couple of days, but nobody understands that, and that's why I proposed the word fellowship. That when we kick a church out or an individual out, we say we disfellowship them. So when we're together, we must be having fellowship.
I like that. I think that's good. I hope it's something that's not geographically limited and somehow communicates our mission of who we are as Baptists. I hope that's a possibility if the convention considers it. But, Steve, I want you to know, and I hope you'll put it in here, that I have no idea what the recommendation... that's probably not a fair thing. I think the task force is interested in making a recommendation. That would be the right thing to say. But I don't know for sure that they're going to feel led to make the recommendation, if that makes sense to you.
Okay.
I think right now they feel it would be helpful, but are they led to do it? We're not at that point yet. But I have no idea what the messengers at 2 consecutive Southern Baptist conventions...
Yeah.
I have no idea. I think one other thing is not just missiological, but I think realistically it no longer states who we are. Because if we're just Southern, that's one thing, but we're no longer that. I mean, with all the diverse ethnicity and congregations around the country we're trying to go, I mean, it would love to see us have a name that was not a barrier outside the South and reflects more who we are and what our mission is.
Right. What do you think is the key to being a faithful, effective pastor?
Number one is the calling of God. Absolutely essential. It's not just a job or a vocation. It's a calling. I think, secondly, to be God's man. I think there's just absolutely nothing that comes close to the importance of staying close to Christ and being God's man. I think then also there is a need to stay focused on the Word of God and the preaching. I just think there's nothing more important that we do than feeding the flock in the Word of God, because we just don't have anything of significance to share. We're not going to really have the real picture of Jesus if we're not preaching and teaching the Word of God. I think also a successful pastor needs to have some leadership ability, because you are in a leadership role. And it is absolutely essential in a larger church. I think with committees and tradition and smaller to medium-sized churches. And by the way, I hope you'll remind our readers, I mean, we've been a very, very small church at Johnson Ferry. So I've pastored all sizes of churches, just been the same name. But I think in a larger church especially, leadership ability is absolutely essential. You've got to have that communication, preaching gift, and the leadership. I think also longevity, Steve. I think it's a tragedy that the short-term pastor, the average length of pastorate. On my first sabbatical in '88, I visited 36 growing churches around the country, different denominations, and I came away so convicted that one common denominator of those growing churches was long-term pastorage.
Yeah.
And I said, Lord, would you just give me the privilege of staying at Johnson Ferry all these days? I never want to hold tightly here, Steve, because the Lord will yank me out of here real quickly. But I just think there's a joy and longevity of ministry, seeing people in different seasons of life, winning the trust of the congregation and the community, just with the stability that occurs there.
Right. Well, anything else you'd like to tell us about?
I've told you so much more than you wanted. You probably...
Okay. Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate your time, and let me tell you, we'll write up the transcript and send it. And if maybe Olivia or Bill or you can just look up, and I certainly don't want to say anything that comes across in any bad way.
But it probably would be me misspeaking, so I very much appreciate you doing that, because I will read it. I want to be sure it communicates what I was trying to communicate.
Okay. And we would like to get it out next Tuesday, so we'll try to get that to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks so much, and we appreciate you, and of course appreciate Johnson Ferry and our work together in North Georgia.
It's been a joy.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'll work that tomorrow morning.
You think? I mean, it's a long transcript.
It is a long transcript. I think I think there's some editing you could do just in some transition